Welcome back to the podcast, the Expect Chaos
Yay, we
podcast.
have a new name.
New name. We decided to rename the podcast after the very first episode. We did not get very far, but it's kind of a funny story as to how we arrived at that name. We were editing the last episode, and there was like a little AI clip maker that popped up, and we were talking about how we both have ADHD, and somehow the AI intuited from that that people should expect chaos. The little header on the video was "Expect chaos. We have ADHD." so we were at a holiday party. And talking to one of our friends and colleagues, and we told him about this, and he was like, "Expect chaos. It's a great name for a podcast." Shout out to Ron Berry for encouraging us to rename the podcast. So yes, expect
future
chaos.
Guest too.
Future guest, yes, absolutely.
We've had lots of deep conversations with Ron over the years, and so excited to bring this to the people listening, and definitely will be on brand with Expect. It is very Expect Chaos on brand to be like, wait, we just launched this podcast, let's change our name immediately.
Exactly. After not even 24 hours, 48 hours after the first episode dropped, we're already changing the name. But I like it, though. I like the new name, and it's not exactly what it sounds like. I think it's not, chaos for the sake of chaos, or like bad chaos. It's more
TBD, I guess.
I think
in our minds,
we hope it's not bad chaos, but it's more sort of connecting the dots between all of these disparate, messy things that happen in life and our careers, and bringing those things into the podcast so we could talk about them and flesh it out. So it's
actually funny because our organizing theme today is actually about the tyranny of expectations. So it's kind of hilarious that we are like expect chaos, but also don't have expectations. But in a funny way, maybe it's kind of meta, where we're saying expect chaos. Expect chaos actually fits into the tyranny of expectations, because it's this sense that life throws things at us that maybe we didn't prepare for or plan for or think were possible. And if we're rigidly clinging to a set of beliefs or expectations about how our life is supposed to unfold, we can actually miss the magic of what is being presented to us in this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Apologies if we don't deliver on chaos in the
traditional
ears
sense
and eyes of the listeners here, but it definitely is. There is a lot to learn from different disciplines, different people, different experiences, and that's sort of what we're trying to get at here, because I think a lot of what we hear is very valuable, right? It centers around very specific things like organizational psychology or leadership, or
me being on the more wooier side, like astrology, human design. I'm so into threads right now, and just the depth and breadth of what people talk about, and the fact that people are just niche busting on a daily basis. It's like, well, today I want to talk about these things that have nothing to do with what I talked about even 5 hours ago. And that's so much fun.
Yeah. So my name is Matt.
I'm Molly.
I am the founder and principal of a company that will soon formally be known as Publitix, which is a strategic communications, public affairs, and political consulting firm. I've been doing that for about 14 years, working at the highest levels of politics and business. So, and we'll talk more about what each of our careers, along the way here. But that's me in a nutshell. And Molly, what have you done?
So I've worked in politics and government for most of my career. And I'm trying to think of what else. I obviously need to work on my short elevator speech intro, because depending on the day, I highlight different portions. But I am the oldest of 7 children, and I really take leadership very seriously, because leadership was thrust upon me at a very early age. So I'm super passionate about leadership. I'm also certified in a type of meditation that really seeks to reconnect people with the internal wisdom that they have. And I'm trying to think, love astrology and human design. I'm talking more openly about my love of that type of learning and language, and it really feels that way for me, and it's helped me make a lot of sense out of pieces of my life and trying to bring that more to the fore. But I actually met Matt and started working with Politics last year when we were both involved in an independent expenditure super PAC helping re-elect members of the Delaware legislature. So we do a lot. We have a lot of varied interests, hence the name of our podcast really just for our own entertainment purposes. We like to connect dots, and we've had enough conversations with people that we thought it'd be cool to put it out there and hopefully spark some non-traditional thinking or some non-traditional dot connecting for others, and bring on some guests who do that as well. So this has been the most meandering, ridiculous introduction. I will promise to work on and tighten that up.
I thought it was good.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Very good. I mean, there's a lot more too. I could go on about you for.
I know we're great at talking about the other person.
Yeah.
Not good at talking about ourselves. If that wasn't obvious by my rambling, meandering, sort of Billy Madison-esque, where the guy's like, no part of that answer. There's no truth in any part of that answer. Like, I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
We are all, what was it? We are all dumber because
we're all dumber for having listened to that. That might be the subtext of our podcast. We hope not.
Rough.
We're excited about it. Hopefully there are other people that are excited about the bouncing and meandering and tangential nature of our conversations.
Well, I for one thought it was a fantastic introduction. Not even approaching the Billy Madison level, but yeah. So this is the podcast. So welcome. Yay. Renamed it after the first episode, and today we are talking about expectations, the tyranny of expectations. This is kind of an interesting time to talk about this too, and again, applicable to a lot of parts of life. So I know throughout my journey, building a business and working in these sort of high stakes areas, like expectations can be really tough, but also thinking about the holidays just having sort of wrapped up, and we're headed into New Year's, but the holidays where expectations can kind of run amok and ruin things, or at least make things worse. So it's I think it's a good time to be talking about expectations and how to reframe and not manage, right? Because I think managing expectations is, it's an important skill to have, but I think it's not to say that you shouldn't have, expectations or hopes or aspirations, but it's sort of how you think about them. The way that I've been kind of thinking through this.
I think for me, it's, so there's this concept in human design, which is based on like astrology and a bunch of wooey stuff. But there's this idea that there are people who are specific manifestors and non-specific manifestors, and to put that in like regular people world terms, the people that really plan and have that 10-year plan, and then people who are more, I want things to feel a certain way, or I want a job that gives me a sense of purpose, and I'm open to what, like that could be multiple different things versus it has to be this specific thing. For me, the expectations management is more, or the lessons I've learned have been around what happens when the thing you wanted doesn't work out the way you wanted it to, or you didn't get the thing you wanted. That's, to me, where the tyranny of expectations comes in, because what reaction do you have? Or are you open to life coming in and surprising you, similar to our last episode of like the magic in the present moment? There are times where things not working out is better for you. And there's magic, and there are lessons when things don't work out. And so the tyranny of expectations to me is not being so rigidly and having the blinders on about what you want to achieve or your goal, such that you're not open to redirection. You're not open to serendipitous events trying to steer you a different way.
Yeah, exactly. And another way that I've been kind of thinking about this over the course of my own career and life is this concept of the roller coaster ride. And the reality. And so going back to I've actually been trying to write a Substack post about this for a while, and I'm just like I'm kind of like bouncing around. So I'm going to give you all this sort of verbal blast of whatever comes out of my stream of consciousness.
Maybe this is how you actually write the Substack.
Maybe, or maybe I'll just leave it at this, and this will be sufficient. But just thinking about again, and I talked about this last episode a little bit, but the early on in my career, standing on a train platform, headed to my first trip down to Washington D.C. as sort of a business trip, and seeing all these people who look like they had made it, right? Like, and thinking if I could just get to this point, everything would be fine. I would be able to step off the roller coaster, because at that point, you're kind of scraping around for clients. You're, doing pitches. You're kind of sitting on pins and needles on as to whether you would even win some of the campaigns that you were doing. And so that all felt like a huge roller coaster. And my thought was, well, if you get established enough and you work hard enough and you get to a certain point, that you're not necessarily going to be on a roller coaster anymore. And, you'll be able to kind of just cruise and life will be, just fine and dandy. And that was a pretty naive thing to think, because like life is a roller coaster, right? It will never be devoid of again, ups and downs. So, over the years, I think some of it for me has been trying to enjoy some of those ups and downs a little bit more. And, kind of just riding the wave to some extent. There's this sort of like, don't, what is it? If you're caught in waves, don't learn how to surf.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's, I didn't quite nail the quote there, but it's approximates it.
Yeah. Don't fight. Like it was funny. I actually posted something about this, I think probably like a year or two ago, but it's like, you go to walk your dog and it's raining. You can be pissed about it. It doesn't make it stop raining.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're into your surf analogy, it's like if you're in a wave and you have a surfboard, as opposed to cursing the fact that you're in the ocean, it's like, okay, well, I have this surfboard. I can try to ride the wave into the shore. Yeah. Versus like cursing the sky and cursing the ocean. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to change those circumstances. So in that way, yeah, you can be like, I wasn't supposed to be here, but you are. So what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, exactly. So that's sort of how I started thinking about it. And then reflecting further, it's
upon further reflection.
Upon further reflection.
That sounded like a very sophisticated email transition.
Upon further reflection.
Have we mentioned we do strategic communication?
I hope this email finds you well.
I'm like, I hope this email never finds me. I love
Please don't find me. Yeah. I hope this email finds you.
It's very ominous.
Oh, goodness.
Sorry. I
love this. So thinking about the roller coasters, though, it's like it's always going to be there, and reflecting on what that looks like, I think expectations, right? Having very specific expectations or attaching ourselves to specific outcomes, like hyper specific outcomes, has the effect of essentially we're building a bigger roller coaster, right? So you're building the loops, you're building the big drops, the sort of, and so I think we do a really good job, generally at doing that, building things up and making things harder for ourselves because of those expectations that we have of a particular situation, or again, attaching ourselves to outcomes. When you're creating something that, is supposed to communicate, for example, like you're putting together an advertisement or a whole campaign around something, and you build that and you have this very specific outcome in mind. And if you don't hit exactly that point, then the whole thing was a failure, right? So you're building it, and then suddenly you're at the top and you're ready to drop, and it doesn't quite land the way that you want it to. Suddenly you're in a free fall, right? And hurtling at 70 miles an hour toward the bottom of the roller coaster. So I think we kind of build things up. Like expectations can are really the sort of building materials. We're building these like really crazy roller coasters in our lives, even though we're going to have that anyway. It's just like you're making it worse. And so that's what I started to realize is getting, hyper fixated on some of these outcomes rather than focusing on the process of doing the thing that needs to be done. So like right now, it would be like, if we don't have 1 million views of this podcast or one of the clips from this particular episode of the podcast, then, or even let's say hundreds or thousands of views, right? Or listens or downloads, then this whole thing's a failure. And that's insane to me. I mean, like if you say it like that, that sounds insane. However, it's easy to start something that you're super excited about and think about that and attach yourself to that outcome and saying, well, it has to be popular right out the gate, or every single episode needs to be a huge hit. And the reality of that is you're going to be disappointed along the way. And then it's going to kind of take some of the wind out of your sails, rather than saying like, what the only thing that we can do right now is make the podcast and sit here and talk and do, and just be us, right? Do what we're going to do. Right. So what you're getting now is us. This is, we may tweak things along the way and change things. And
like the name.
Light editing, yeah.
Like the name by the second
We may change that again. Who knows, right? Expect chaos. But yeah. I think, the only thing that we can be doing is this right now. I can't concern myself exactly with the people who are listening. And honestly, like I love this. Like I think that was another thing we were talking a little bit about too, is like getting better about talking about how proud we are of certain things that we do or put out in the world, and talking about how much we love it. And I genuinely love doing this. This is fun. We're only on our second episode, but I think, we have something really cool here, and whether or not people listen to it is out of my hands. Right. And I can't do anything, but if we're building this as with the intent that it's going to be a huge hit and we're going to have all of these listeners, and that's the whole point, then I think we're missing the point in building that roller coaster and setting a crazy expectation. That's,
It does. And it's trying to figure out how to hold the expectation lightly, because like you said, you want to have a goal. I mean, there's hopefully a purpose to the things that we do, but it's being willing to be more expansive about the purpose and being willing to be redirected when things don't go exactly as we thought. So in terms of, like you were saying, if we are so focused on the outcome and the expectation is if we do this, then that completely discounts the growth. The fact that, like you said, you're working on a Substack post. Perhaps this conversation helps you clarify, and now you can write your Substack post. If the only thing you're putting on the scale are these big things that are out of your control, you're going to cause yourself suffering. You're going to cause yourself anxiety, because at the end of the day, you like you said, we have no control over whether people listen to us. Sure, we can try to look at trends. We take feedback from people, or people have a suggestion like, hey, we'd really love you to talk about this. Sure. But ultimately it's within our own power. And there are so many times in our life, including with expectations, where we give away our agency to things outside of ourselves, as opposed to showing up to life, being clear about either our values or our goals or our purpose or what we're hoping to achieve, and then acknowledging that that's really all we can do. We don't have control over what other people do. And you're going to hear us talk a lot about Buddhist and sort of yogic type themes. We will do our best to credit sources. We, as you can probably tell, ingest tons of information and don't always remember where things exactly come from. But that sense that the only thing you can control are your reactions. Like what life serves you in many, many ways is so out of our control. But we can choose how we respond. We can choose, that pain is inevitable, but suffering's optional. We would argue that so much suffering is caused by life not meeting our expectations and us being so fixated on that failure to meet our expectations that we're missing what's around us. We're missing, there were probably, like in your example of building a roller coaster, there were probably multiple times to step back. And, this is very similar to the sunk cost fallacy, where you're presented with opportunities to step off that path. But, you have hard data, you have your team, you have people presenting you with reasons that this path and this outcome, or the direction you're going, is no longer appropriate. But because you've invested so much time, energy, effort, you ignore and discount that information and keep pressing forward.
Yeah.
Because you expected, you're the person that delivers, you're the person that does this. Like, there's a lot of ego, not ego in an arrogant sense, but like identity that gets wrapped up in a lot of this too. Like, I would argue that expectations and ego are very intertwined.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of the first client I ever had doing a campaign, right? So it was a congressional campaign, and so this, I mean, it was a long shot campaign. It was the longest of long shots, not very well funded, but this person that I was working with had some degree of success in life, prior to this, and pretty much succeeded at most of the things that he had done. So given that it was a, pretty, under-resourced campaign, we had to do some stuff to get a little creative and figure it out. But for whatever reason, the candidate and the campaign manager latched onto this idea that if we ran one single advertisement on during a debate, that this would turn the tide of the campaign. And even at that young age, this being my first campaign, you know that repetition matters a lot. But I mean, it was even worse than that, I think. The reason that this particular TV station was airing the debate was because the candidate himself knew the station manager, so they agreed to air the debate. However, the station didn't really have any coverage within the congressional district at all. So like, even if you lived in there, it wasn't really, there were only one or two cable systems that actually carried this station. So even worse, right? And at best, the station didn't have that much viewership anyway, but they wanted to go ahead with it. So the expectation that he had built up in his mind, and the campaign manager is like, well, if we shoot this really good ad and we air it during the debate, that everybody's going to watch. Which, again, do people watch debates for the average congressional race, especially? And then we're talking pre-2016, right? So a lot of people were checked out from politics, especially midterms. This is a midterm. So we shoot the ad, and we have all sorts of issues with it. I mean, this was one of the craziest things. The specs so for anyone who's ever done video editing or anything like that, the specs were wrong, and we ended up having the audio come out too hot. And we kept sending to them. They're like, "Oh, it must be a problem with the FTP, the file transfer protocol, where you upload the ad to their traffic system." So they were like, "Can you get us a Betamax?" This is 2012, right? So I'm like,
I was going to say, like, even though this was pre-2016, this wasn't 1985.
I was like, this is 2012. I'm like, a Betamax? I was like, where am I going to get a Betamax? They're like, well, we run on Betamax still. I'm like, I couldn't even begin to track down, number one, a blank Betamax tape, and then number two, a Betamax machine to encode this on. So I'm running around making phone calls, trying to find a Betamax. Finally, one of their engineers gets back to us and goes, "Oh, our spec was wrong. We need you to drop the decibel level." I don't know, whatever it was. So it ended up working. But anyway, point being is everyone
didn't need the Betamax.
Everyone was very unhappy with this whole situation because, there was so much, the stakes were built up so high. It's like our entire campaign hinges on this one single 30-second advertisement that's going to air on this network that nobody watches.
3% of the district will see at best. 3% of the
At
district,
best.
even only 3% of the district had the ability to see, and that would assume that every single one of the people actually watched the debate in that 3% catchment area.
I mean, it would have been incredible.
Races are won by less than 100 votes.
Yeah.
So
I
don't know, Matt. I think you're being a little Debbie Downer on this whole strategy.
Well, he lost by like 20,000. So
okay. All right, fine.
May not have been that
You're
bad,
right,
but it was pretty bad.
You're right.
But the expectation was built up so high.
If only you had recorded it on Betamax, maybe then
I think
you would have only lost by 19,000.
I think that was the problem, actually.
It was. I think you ruined everything by not finding the Betamax.
You know what? The Betamax gives you that sort of like earthy kind of
like
feeling.
The grainy,
the grainy like analog
salt
feeling.
Salt of the earth.
Salt of the earth. Yeah, exactly. So that's. So we really screwed up there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, lesson learned.
It's like recording on an LP, right? A vinyl. Yeah. You just get that kind of rich, crackly.
Completely.
Yeah. So you know what? So
like an FDR radio chat throwback.
Upon further reflection.
Upon further reflection.
I think this whole thing was my fault.
Yep.
Oh, damn.
Be better.
Well, that's the end of this episode. But yeah, I mean, stuff happens and it's unavoidable, right? And so, but I think again, like building up that expectation that, everything is going to go perfectly or, you're going to achieve the exact outcome that you want can be a very difficult thing for people to deal with. Like the candidate that I was talking about, he had a very difficult time then moving on from that specific issue. We did air the ad. It didn't have the effect that anyone thought it might, but he just wasn't able to get his head back in the game because his expectation of that particular moment was violated, rather than viewing the situation as, I expect this ad to be good, but it's a scaffolding to get to build on top of for the other activities that we're going to do in the remainder of the campaign. We're going to knock on doors. We're going to do mail to some extent, or we're going to do more TV, or we didn't do more TV, but whatever it was. But like, he just couldn't motivate then after that to get out and hit doors, which is important. Like, if you have no money and the only thing you can do is knock doors, then that's what you have to do as a candidate. And if you can't motivate to do that because your expectation is violated and you've completely, deflated after something because of that thing you built up.
I would posit that the ad was, so a lot of times too, we have to wonder where our expectations are an avoidance strategy. And we talked about this a little bit in the first episode of the perfectionism, having certain expectations and then the inability to meet those expectations is a very convenient way to deflect responsibility for not doing the thing. So I would not be shocked, and maybe he wasn't even consciously aware of this, that it's way easier to film an ad than it is to go knock a bunch of doors. And so having to really lean into that, I need to do, like, no, it's not about the doors. It's not about the fundraising. It's about this video. And then the video doesn't work. You've not only staked a bit of your reputation and your identity in, I know what to do, and then it didn't work. You now have been shown very plainly, hey, the thing that you were trying to avoid, you're still going to probably have to do it. So it's, I think expectations, and when we hold too tightly to anything, we often find that in some way, shape, or form gets taken away from us because it's blocking growth. It's blocking what we, from, to be a little bit more spiritual, what we actually came here to do. If we believe we are here for a reason, and that doesn't have to be a grandiose reason, but if there's a point to our existence and we keep repeating a pattern and clinging to something that is blocking our ability to do the things we came here to do, life may find many ways to try to move that boulder off of our path, or say, and this is again, we're like holding expectations and outcomes lightly. If you keep throwing yourself into the locked door, can you look around and see if there's a window? Is there a trap door in the floor? Is somebody reaching a hand down from the ceiling saying, hey, I can help you up? But we're like, no, I've got to put my shoulder into this door. I've got to try to find dynamite to blow the door open. I've got to get a crowbar. Like, we're just so intent on getting this damn door open that we're ignoring everything, or, you know, to put like just really, you know, lean hard into this analogy. Like, we talk about that, the person in the hurricane, where it's like, you know, the person knocks on the door and says, hey, there's a hurricane coming, you should evacuate. And then it starts, you know, flooding, and someone comes by in a boat and says, hey, you need to get out of here. And then the water rises higher, and the person's sitting on their roof, and then a helicopter comes and they're like, hey, you got to evacuate. And this whole time they're like, no, I'm going to be saved. I'm going to be saved. I'm going to be saved. And then they get to where they go in the next life, whether that's heaven or wherever, and they talk to, you know, the power that is, and they say, hey, what the heck? Like, I believed in you. Why didn't you save me? And this being goes, are you serious?
I sent you a boat.
Someone knocked on your door. I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. You saw the report on the news. Like, what more did you want me to do? So there comes a point at which there is a level of responsibility around saving ourselves and, you know, being willing to see what is, not necessarily what we want things to be, and then acting accordingly.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think too, a lot of it, to kind of bring it into a practical sense, you know, when an expectation is violated, it can really, again, take the wind out of your sails in a way that's very difficult. So if you're, you know, for yourself in life, or managing a team, for example, or are running an organization, and you run into these situations where it's not that you don't have goals. And I mean, people fall short of goals all the time. People exceed goals. It's, you know, so you need to have goals and objectives. But again, in terms of the specificity of expectations for how things are going to work out, you know, if you can build some flexibility into the culture of how you work through these issues, it can help with motivation, because you get burnt out really quickly and unmotivated really quickly if you're constantly building these things up and then you're not quite hitting the very specific thing that you've created in your head, or you know, you're again missing all of the other good stuff that came out of a situation that maybe didn't work out exactly how it was. So I think that's a huge lesson that I've taken away is, and then the other thing, again, for me, and I'd be curious like what your method for this is, but again, it's just like thinking about the thing that you can do now. Like, what are you doing now? So we have your goal, and then whether, again, that's a life goal, whether that's a work goal, what can you do in this present moment to take a step toward that goal, rather than, again, attaching yourself to the outcome. I
would say too, even before that point, trying to, again, surface not just the specific outcome, but what else? What other attendant benefits do we think come from this endeavor? Maybe somebody on your team gets some project management experience, or maybe like there are other things other than the final outcome. So be willing to put in the time, and also in our own lives, to examine what about this journey is helpful, and then identifying and trying to put both guardrails and checkpoints. There's something that I learned about in grad school where they talked about doing a pre-mortem. So you pretend that the thing failed, and then you kind of go back. Oh, sorry, just hit your mic. I'm just flailing about. But you have this conversation as if it failed, and then you brainstorm around, well, why did it fail? And that helps you unearth maybe some of the things that would come up later as you were building the roller coaster. And then also, again, setting in, based on that information, or kind of both of those exercises, setting up some checkpoints where you can say, we are going to go a little bit of time, and then we're going to have an honest conversation about how it's going and what potentially needs to change. You know, have we hit, you know, like you were saying, break it down to like either the next step or the next couple of steps, and then check in, so that we're not getting so far down the road, back to traffic stuff. We're not getting so far down the road that you then start to pull in just human psychology of the sunk cost of my identity is now wrapped up in this thing. But like, how can you just, before you even get started, do a little bit of due diligence and kind of slow down, which is hard. I mean, God knows I struggle with this because I get really excited. Like I love starting things and ending things. The middle is not always my strong suit, but it's when you're really excited, it's hard to kind of pull the reins and to be the person on the team that says, well, wait, have we really thought about this? But as long as that's done in a spirit of making the whole process better versus throwing up roadblocks as to why we shouldn't move forward at all. If the decision's been made to move forward, taking the time to again go through these, like, what do we want to gain from this? Not the outcome, gain in the journey. What are some of the ways it could fail, and how do we accommodate those things and set ourselves up for success, but also not assume success, and check in at intervals, have some of those initial metrics that show us whether this is going in the direction we want, I think can really help avoid that you've spent 5 years building the roller coaster. You know, you put all of your eggs in that one video, one awesome ad basket, and now what do you do that it didn't deliver what you thought?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes me think about golf too. So I play golf occasionally at this point. I played competitively in high school, which was tough, and then, you know, took some time off because it's a very frustrating game. But it's a great analogy, right? You have 18 holes, right? And your intent, your objective, your expectation is you are going to go onto the golf course and shoot a low score. If you're in a tournament, win that tournament. But if you expect to go through all 18 holes and not hit a single bad shot the entire time, and you're on the 5th hole and suddenly you shank one into the woods, all of a sudden your brain is going to be on fire, right? It's going to completely scramble your entire approach to the game in a way that's very unproductive and unhelpful, right? So you can have that expectation that or goal, like, I want to shoot low today, I want to win this tournament, but you still
like,
have
you're
to
there. You're there for a reason. You're there to win.
Right, exactly.
What that looks like getting there is what you're saying. Like, you don't expect to win as in by having a perfect round where you're, you know, eagle par all the stuff the entire time.
Exactly. So, like, how do you recover from bad shots, right? Like, I mean, it's going to happen in the round of, I don't care how on the mark, on the money you are that day, how it's just, you're going to hit a bad shot, you're going to hit a bad putt, like, something is going to happen and you're going to have to figure it out.
Life happens.
Life happens, right? So it's an analog for life. So even along the road of a project, right? Like, things are going to happen along the way, and it's going to make it feel like it's violating, again, that expectation. Like, we're going to go out here and do this perfectly, and it's just not possible. There's no such thing as perfect. So to the extent that you can ride the natural ups and downs of whatever it is you're doing, life, roller coaster, work, like, those things are going to exist, and learning to ride those waves without building up the drops higher than they need to be is an incredibly valuable skill. And, like, I'm not certainly perfect at this by any means, but I think, again, coming back to awareness, like, awareness is always the start of, like, am I making these situations worse for myself? Am I creating this crazy, again, expectation of something that isn't really that high stakes? Like, let's just make the stakes appropriate for this. And then if something goes wrong, deal with it in that moment. Like, that's the next step. So just coming back to this moment and being like, again, the only thing we can do right now is make this podcast.
And it's, you know, thinking back to, and not to pick on, you know, some random person that I don't even know. And I've done, so I'll just put myself in the shoes back to, and we're going to talk a lot about team psychological safety and being the type of leader that you listen when someone says, because part of, like, that, again, you're throwing yourself against the door and there's a hand reaching down. A lot of times that's your team, that's your friends and family, and use your discernment to see if they're being kind of Debbie Downer or, you know, kind of bringing their own bullshit into your situation. But a lot of times, like, there are people that are willing to and able to offer you perspective, but you have to be the type of person that is receptive to it. And as a leader or just as a person, like that is an orientation to work towards. No one likes being told that what they're doing isn't going to work, but how can you expect to get to where you're going, especially if where you're going involves other people? Like if you are leading a team, you are on a team, whether you want to be or not. This is now a team sport. Creating the type of environment where constructive feedback, so that you're not building, and it's, you know, a road to nowhere, is so valuable and absolutely in the purview of the leader to not only create, but take accountability for creating, because you can save yourself so much time by picking a team that isn't afraid to tell you what's really happening, and is also bringing ideas and things that you probably wouldn't have thought about, which is another way that we can hold expectations lightly. If you're trying to achieve the outcome and you're a little more agnostic about how you get there, and this was always something I said when I worked at, you know, in the cabinet agency I worked in, it's like the table stakes are legal, moral, and ethical. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, like, let's think creatively. Like, let's not box ourselves into, we have to go from step A to B to C. If you can show that we actually need to be going from A to G and then back to B, and then leaping forward to X, and this is going to be better for the people we serve, this is going to be better for the team, like, let's talk about it. Why would you want to be a leader who's so rigidly adhering to the path must look like A to B to C, if that's not necessary? I mean, that is a way too that we put in expectations. Like, I'm the leader that knows everything, I'm the leader that does this, that, and the other. Like, that's a way that we can really sabotage not just ourselves, but, you know, some of this success is the team's success. And when the leader hasn't created the right environment, yes, maybe it's inevitable that the project fails, but think about the collateral damage of that and how unfair that is to the team. And, you know, they're feeling like somehow they didn't do something right. And maybe that's the case in some sense, but, you know, was the team actually set up for success? There's unfortunately expectations everywhere. Expectations around holidays should look like this, or life should look like this, or this project should look like this. And they're really everywhere. And it's like you were saying, the awareness, just having that awareness that they're everywhere, and kind of looking for ways that they show up in your life so that you can try to, you know, potentially hold them a little more loosely and see what you can do to be a little bit more open to the unexpected. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, to bring it back to the holiday season, you were talking about our Christmas tree and, you know, just sort of the expectation, because again, holidays can be this big thing where people build up like, oh, Christmas should be this certain way and everything needs to look a certain way, and the food and this seating at a table and like the atmosphere needs to look a certain way. And I think if you talk to a lot of people around the holidays actually are a very stressful time for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. But I think, again, because building all of these things up in our mind of like the holidays should look like this. And then oftentimes they don't, right? Like something always goes awry, right? You leave the turkey in the oven for a little bit.
Yeah, there's like a bunch of people, like expecting a bunch of people to all act a very specific way that one person decided in their head and then didn't have a conversation with anybody else around is kind of absurd.
It is. I mean, like expecting like, you know, Uncle Billy to like not drop
I do that all the time. So I'm not saying that to be like throw shade on anybody else.
No,
but
it's hard though. It's hard. I mean, like, again, like expecting like, you know, some random uncle to not like drop a, you know, a crazy bomb at the table and, you know, rile up the family or start a fight, or again, leaving the turkey in the oven for, you know, a few minutes too long and it gets ruined. Or our Christmas tree, which doesn't have any ornaments on it this year.
There's a couple. I realized after I posted that, I was like, there's actually a couple. But yeah, we usually, so growing up, we decorated the tree early, but then we started this tradition of decorating it on Christmas Eve. And we had a couple ornaments that we had purchased or that people gave us, and we put them up on the tree. But then it got to Christmas Eve and I had family coming in from out of town, and, you know, the kids are running around and we're tired, you know, elf on the shelf shenanigans, like we talked about, like we're tired of being pranked by the elves. And it was just this sense of like, putting these ornaments on the tree just felt like a lot. And also, we had tried to get the kids to put up ornaments with us, and they also kind of didn't give a crap about putting up the ornaments. So to be clear, we didn't like rob the children of a beautiful Christmas tree, but nobody actually seemed to care whether the ornaments were on the tree. And so we were just like, screw it. Like, why put the ornaments up? Which weirdly felt like an act. Like, I grew up Catholic. You grew up Catholic. It felt like this wild act of defiance of like, I didn't put up the ornaments. But it was also just, it was so freeing to just let that go, because it would have been a slog. Like, we probably would have had fun with it because we find a way to have fun with everything. But everyone was just hanging out. It was like a lovely, calm Christmas Eve. The kids are bouncing around. Like, everyone's doing stuff, and to be like, all right, everybody stop what you're doing. We're going to decorate the damn tree. You know, just
because it needed to look that way or something.
Or just because this is what you do.
Right.
You have ornaments, you put ornaments on the tree. You must do that every year. And it was just incredibly, it felt like, again, a little defiant of like, oh no, am I going to get in trouble? But also it just felt incredibly freeing to just let that go. And everyone had a magical Christmas. You'll be shocked to know that no, the Christmas was not ruined because there were only like 7 ornaments on the tree versus the usual. It looked like an art school, elementary school project barfed all over our tree is usually what it looks like.
Yeah. I mean, we had the space to do other stuff that everyone wanted to do. So it was sort of like just going with the flow of what the holiday, rather than trying to create a flow, there ended up being kind of a flow. We ended up making cookies and like doing all sorts of other stuff.
Interrupting the flow to do just
this to make it look
thing.
that way.
Trees have to have ornaments.
And guess what? It was fine.
It was fine.
It was great.
It had the lights. The lights were my favorite part.
Me too. It was a fantastic Christmas. So overall, the tree did not spoil, like you said.
The ornaments did not ruin Christmas.
The
or
ornaments
lack
did
thereof.
not. Yeah, I was very happy with it. So the cookies were great. We made cake pops and all sorts of other delicious stuff. The only downside is the amount of sugar consumed over the last couple of days has been pretty intense.
I've eaten enough sugar to kill a small farm animal at this point.
As have I. But
I feel like we're getting almost in an hour, but we'll leave people just really quick with the fact that we're about to turn to calendar year 2026, and there's going to be a ton of pressure and expectations to set resolutions. However, it is winter, at least if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, which is a time of rest and dormancy and not kind of go. And so a lot of people, like whether, people who follow the seasons, believe that, really kind of that the natural new year is the first day of spring. So if you are somebody that is feeling exhausted from the holidays, this sense of it's cold outside and I kind of want to just take a nap, I don't necessarily want to jump back into the gym or whatever other, crazed tradition you're trying to hurl yourself into, you don't have to. You can join us in loosely, we're going to let go of the 80 pounds of sugar. And that's a great first step. We don't now need to jump into going to the gym 7 days a week or whatever else. So do not feel like you have to do what everybody else, or it feels like everybody else is doing around this new year. And if you want to kind of crawl into 2026 or like inchworm your way in your snuggy blankie, cheers.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing too. If you want to do any of those things, right? If you want to pursue it, have at it. But the other thing I think that, again, expectations around resolutions and things like that is you say this all the time about, if you trip up a stair, does it make sense to throw yourself down the entire set of stairs? And so if you miss a day, again, it's the question of, okay, what can I do? You missed a day. Great. So what can you do in this moment to keep going or pursue, the thing that you want to pursue? And, if the answer is in this moment, well, I missed a day, but I can go to the gym today. That feels like it flows with everything. That makes sense. Don't beat yourself up. Like, again, the expectation walking into it is like, if your resolution is I want to go to the gym 7 days a week for the next, 5 months, and you miss a day 2 weeks in because, life again happens, then that can be very deflating, right? If you had that picture of yourself in your head that you were going to do that every single day. And some people are capable of doing it and do a
and
really
if you
great
are,
job.
like, again, if you
Awesome.
genuinely want to do all of this and it's coming from your own internal motivation and the gym or whatever we're talking about is actually how you stay grounded and centered and able to do your stuff, absolutely zero shade. Like, that is amazing. What we're saying is everybody else, don't look at you who go to the gym 5 days a week and assume that they're a failure because they're not living their life like you are. And like, it's also just like, let's kind of relax the judgment, judgment of ourselves, the judgment of other people around kind of how we're living our lives and the expectations that we have for ourselves, and, you know, try to figure out what really works best for us.
Yeah. Observe, don't judge.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
So we'll leave you with that. And if you like the chaos, you're enjoying the chaos, want to join us in this journey for the rest of this
And the
rest of
traffic,
this journey and
random
the traffic, we'll see you out in the road.
And lots of analogies. We love analogies and metaphors and allegories and all things.
Absolutely.
And alliteration. I do love alliteration.
Oh, I love alliteration. I also love puns. So if you're not up for that, then
It's probably
watch
not,
out.
It's probably not your podcast.
I'm actually surprised I have not dropped a pun yet. But
I think it's because we're still tired from the holidays.
I got to get my pun energy back. Yeah, so maybe a little nap will bring it back. But if you are here for the journey and you're enjoying the chaos and you are looking to connect dots between, again, disparate things and, you know, try to make sense and build resiliency and you know, try to live a life that's more aligned and flows and are thinking about those things the way in the way that we're thinking about them or in different ways, please join us. Leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on Substack, so you can subscribe there to get new episodes straight to your inbox.
Threads at Molly McGarrick. I love Threads. It's so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're on Instagram as well, so you can catch us on Instagram and
anywhere.
TikTok. But yeah,
and
leave us a
we're looking
review.
for guests. So if anyone has any ideas about who would be a fun person to have join the chaos, we're open to those as well.
Absolutely. And we're very excited, actually. We're lining up a couple of really great guests. Our friend Ron, of course, Barry, who we can credit for the name change. But we have some other folks that we're lining up too that are going to be fantastic. And we're certainly looking forward to it. So again, if you could leave us a review, join us on the journey. We thank you for taking the time to sit with us and indulge the chaos. So until next time.
Thanks. Right. Happy almost 2026. See ya 2025. Not going to miss you.
Bye.